Okay, yes. Good afternoon, one and all. My goodness, what a violent weekend. I know it is, Janet. It's not going to. There's Chris. Hope everyone, I had a very nice Thanksgiving. We're going to be live tonight at 7, not riding, but just here. Catch up on everything. And then, yes, thank you, Bill. I did. I love seeing my thriving stars, my children that are doing just great. Folks, we're going to start in just, I didn't know that. Send me a link on that. Nancy Grace posted on Facebook. I'll contact her. I know her. I used to be on her show quite a bit. She would know me. Yes, there's our friend Bill and everyone. We're going to start off. We're going to be joined by Justin Katz, managing editor. Hold on one moment, folks. All right. Thank you, Tracy. Folks, I've been working nonstop. I love that. Nice to see you. Do you know I worked nonstop yesterday on the 295 rollover? Yesterday was a full work day. You see my work. You see my work. Of course you don't. All right. Check out our Facebook page. I'll have to do that. All right. We're going to begin in just one moment. And okay. Pete says we're good. We're going to start in just a moment. I still don't see. I'm a little confused here. Tragedy. It looks like the same press conference, but we're going to start. Folks, good afternoon at 106. We are live right now on AM 1380 and also 99.9 FM. I don't need it right now. I shouldn't have said anything. I don't need it right now, not while I'm speaking. So we're focused right now. I wouldn't do anything with it anyway. So I don't need anything. Now, I also want to mention we are, and we are off to a roaring start. Why do I say anything? I was just trying to help you. I don't need it right now. I don't. I will get in touch with her though. But folks, right now we're live on YouTube, and we're also live on X, and obviously on our Facebook page. So let me just, I want to hate when I get thrown off like that. Okay, and then we're right there. All right, Justin Katz going to join us momentarily. Folks, this portion of the program, though, you know, I was there yesterday, and what a display they have. PR Landscape Materials in Garden Center, 3688 Quaker Lane in North Kingstown. You know, on second thought, I don't think I'm going to go live tonight. I don't think I'm going to go live tonight. Look at this. I'm not even like 10 minutes in. Comical. That's the only word. But they have all their Christmas decorations. It's underway. They have everything you need decorating your home. Fraser fir trees, balsam trees, potted live trees, custom handmade wreaths, 10 inch, 60 inches in size. They have Christmas swag and mistletoe and hanging baskets, decorative pots and cemetery baskets. Folks, they have it all. They're open 7 days a week. Look for them on Facebook. What a great season and year they've had. It's PR Landscape Materials and Garden Center. Now, you hear me mention the Coesit Inn, and they are sponsors of our website, depetro.com. Folks, you know, it's interesting. The Providence Journal, whoever is, I don't even know who's over there anymore, but they wrote this piece basically saying that people should not pay attention to people should not be an independent, right? They should just, and you know, she's what she considers to be. Let me just check it now as I'm thinking of it. I did not see it in the print edition. What's her name again? Lynn Sullivan, executive editor of the Providence Journal. You know, I used to know who I used to meet with the executive editor of the Providence Journal, but she basically says like, not like, but she rattles off who you should be getting your news from. What a surprise! It's all left-leaning newspapers. If you log on to DePietro.com, of which the website is just so on fire right now. We have, and I'm going to have more on. I mean, this is terrible what happened in Central Falls, and I have more information on that. And we're the only ones that have a photo of the goon that I had on the screen, that Juan Aquila that ran that poor girl off of 295. We're the only ones that have the story that the Central Falls 6 faked the suicide note. And then other stories like that. They're all, it's information you can't get anywhere else. But check it out at the website, and it is DePietro.com. Now, coming up this hour, we will talk about this horrible situation in Central Falls. And also, conversely, the same with that young girl, 23 years old, Casey, her father, state police captain, her brother's a trooper. She was run off the road by that goon. And, you know, I'm getting contacted by his friends and family. Oh, it was a tragic accident. Tragic accident. He didn't even stay on scene. He was arrested for running her off the road off of 295. So we are going to touch on that. But folks, on this Monday, it is time for our segment, Politics This Week. Joining us, he is the managing editor of AnchorRising.com. It is Justin Katz. And Justin, I want to start off, I don't know, most of the time we agree. I did read what you wrote over the weekend about Aaron Gukian. And, you know, I want to hear you out. I have strong thoughts about it. I think he's kicked off his campaign in tremendous fashion. I also view him as, he ran a very good race in 2022. He beat Sabina Matos day of voting. And then he also, day of voting, he won. He won day of voting. He won Warwick. The only reason, to me, Sabina Matos got over the finish line for lieutenant governor is because whoever was collecting all those mail ballots, she was included with McKee and also Seth Magaziner. So, but for the slate of candidates of 2022, I thought he ran, you know, a very credible race. But let's talk about it in his entry into the race now, Republican for governor.
Well, I mean, sure, he's certainly credible, and he's a good candidate. I like him as a candidate. I think he's got a lot of great attributes in his background. I mean, it's very varied. He's got healthcare experience. He's got education experience as a teacher. He's worked in a governor's office. He's worked with municipal agencies. So he's got a whole lot that would make him a good governor and a good candidate for governor. I just worry that if you picture a curve, you know, that goes up quickly and then never quite hits the top of the chart. I fear that's what Rhode Island media kind of considers a credible Republican. So I think he'll get a lot of attention. He'll be treated like a respectable candidate. But I feel like that's partly because they know he can't possibly win. Because if he's just competing on doing some of the same policies Rhode Islanders get from Democrats, if he's just concentrated on that in a better way, a more efficient way, a smarter way, that's wonderful. But it's not enough, I don't think, to get somebody over the finish line. And I think that's one of the reasons the news media will treat him immediately as credible. On the other hand, in that piece you referenced, I juxtapose him with another candidate, Elaine Polino, who announced a few weeks ago, and she's full on conservative. She's out there talking about the Department of Government Efficiency with Elon Musk and Doge. She's saying we're going to have to look at pension colas. all the third rails of Rhode Island politics, that's a very different situation where she'll I think get a lot of attention from kind of people like me, who her base. But the news media will probably ignore her, treat her as if she's not a serious candidate. One, because they suspect anybody with those crazy beliefs must have some other reason for doing it. And plus, if she were to succeed, that would mean a lot of their own values, the news media's values, would have to change. And so those are the two kind of paths I see for Rhode Island Republicans, and it's not easy to tell which one to take.
Let's talk about that for a minute. And I'll be honest, that is not someone I take seriously. And I'll tell you why. I go back to when you and I talked about David Morales, and they talk about he's really talented. He's never been in charge of anything. He has been elected, though, I'll say that. But with that candidate, Justin, to me, people like that, they only want you to look at their platform. But unless I'm missing something, she's never run for office, never been elected to office, has no idea how to run a campaign, how to raise money for a campaign. I am unfamiliar with any experience managing a large group of people. I mean, to me, the fringe type candidate, this is my point, they want it to be all about, quote, their platform, even though, in today's day and age, between Fox and Newsmax and those other groups, some just construct and say, this is my, platform, and it's approved by Newsmax or it's approved by Tucker Carlson, whoever. The reason why I believe Aaron Gukian is a legitimate candidate is he, as I said, he won day of voting. He ran a very credible campaign. He did well in the debates. He had a good billboard campaign. He was part of the governor's office. He has been involved with, since then. But I just come back to, he won Warwick, and Ashley Kalis didn't win Warwick. That's, to me, that's no small feat. And I don't view it as someone just says, this is my platform, because to me, it's a lot, you and I both know, it's a lot more than that. It's the ability to, can you run a credible campaign? People may not like it, but that's the system. Can you raise money? Can you get your message out? Can you have some message with advertising? It's all part of it. I really strike back against these, quote, oh, we're going to run a grassroots campaign. To me, that's just an excuse of someone that they don't know how to run a campaign and they don't know how to raise money. But I'll give you the final word.
Well, I don't disagree. I mean, I'm not saying one or the other of these candidates is likely to win or can win, but I think they both got different paths to not winning, in my view. And I think the problem with Aaron Gukian is he did run well. He will get attention, and is credible as a candidate and as a leader. But he's not going to be able to articulate enough of a difference from the Democrats to overcome them, to say, I can do it better than they can. And if he did, or that I would do something extremely different than they would, if he did articulate something like that, he would suddenly become treated as the extreme candidate and would lose a lot of that kind of momentum. So I just don't see, I think I'm looking more at a path for the Rhode Island Republican Party in a longer term. And I think either of these candidates, we have to choose between, are we going to try to be credible candidates, or are we going to try to articulate something different that can maybe burst through that Democrat wall? And I think in the long term, the Republicans have to go the latter way and try to burst through the wall. But I don't think there's enough time for either of these candidates to make a difference and get into the office.
And we can agree to disagree. I think like I said, he won Warwick. He won day of voting. But
he was still 43% of the vote. I mean, so it's not, it was better than the average Republican does in Rhode Island, but not like 49,
Okay. Well, how much there was a third party candidate. How much did they get?
Oh, much less. But I mean, if a typical Republican gets in the 30s, 43 is better. But like I say, he's a better candidate than the typical Republican has been in Rhode Island. I don't think a better candidate is enough at this point.
How much did the independent candidate, what percent of the vote did they get?
That I don't know.
They got 5%. So when you look at now if that independent candidate was not in the race, well, now you're looking at more of a 51-48. He won day of voting. And I think, Justin, I believe the message of that, and it can't be discounted. But when people just look at the 43, they don't look at the fact that there was an independent candidate that took away 5% of the vote. I'm going to say that a lot of the people, maybe not all, but most that would have voted for him probably voted for the independent candidate. I believe his race is an example of, if we had legitimate elections and you didn't have all these unlimited mail ballots, that it would have been a very different race. Like I said, that is not easy. He won day of voting. Alan Fung won day of voting. Helena Folks won day of voting in the primary. I push back against Ashley Kalis and some of these others that she didn't win day of voting. She didn't win any major city or town. He did, and raised a decent amount of money. So I view him, I think he's the best one of the field out there that wants to run. I know some other names are tossed around, but I think Aaron is a serious candidate. And I think in a very muddy Democrat primary, I think he's even a better candidate this time around. Speaking of that, let's talk about the poll that came out with Governor McKee. And Justin, I am still waiting for rest of the media to delve into with the polling numbers that Governor McKee is looking at. We're in a Democrat primary. He finishes behind Speaker Shekarchi, who hasn't even announced he's running, where the governor comes in at 11%. Helena Folks down a little bit at 29, Shekarchi at 13. I come back to, what would motivate a sitting governor that gets 11% of the vote, 72% disapproval? What on earth would lead him to believe that he can win?
That's a good question. To me, it can only come back to knowing that he's sold his soul to the unions, and there's going to be mail ballot assistance for him. I think that those are the two factors that must keep him in, and some kind of strange ego he's got. But it's actually interesting to compare. I mean, when Aaron Guckian announced that he was going to announce, the governor was right away out with a statement talking about how he's going to, two things that seem contradictory to me, that he's going to be tired old Republican talking points and a mouthpiece for Donald Trump, which those don't go together. And it's such an immature, mean statement from the governor right out of the gate. It seems so typical of everything we've talked about for years with him. He just seems thin-skinned and mean. Hey, sitting governor, why don't you say, I look forward to a great debate. I welcome more candidates into the race. Something with some integrity. And I think that's why you see in that poll you referenced, they polled Folks versus McKee, and they added in Shekarchi to see the difference. Shekarchi, I was actually a little surprised, took more from McKee than from Folks. I mean, he was about evenly split, but he took more from McKee. And I think that's a lot of people who, well, first of all, they know he's going to be just as friendly to labor unions as McKee can possibly be. But there's also Shekarchi has cultivated. I mean, he's the Speaker of the House, which technically he's managing both parties in the House, Republicans and Democrats, and so he has cultivated this sense of being reasonable. You could talk to him. He's somebody who won't just dismiss you because you're a Republican. And here's McKee out with this, Aaron Guckian's just like Donald Trump, which is just a stupid thing to say, a mean thing to say. But I think that shows you between the incompetence, and there was a good editorial in Go Local Prov talking about how Armand Sabatoni, the union guy, essentially appointed Alviti and McKee to their positions, and it's blown up in a terrible way. Between that kind of level of incompetence that we're now blaming the people who supported them for it, and the meanness, I think McKee, I'm surprised he's in double digits, to be honest with you.
But I think you're right. What I think is telling, and I hope it does get the play, that here you have a governor who's been away for the past almost 2 weeks. Still, I think he's still on vacation. His campaign person put out a statement. I think it shows how serious they take Aaron, and it's Guckian. Guckian. I was the same way. I had trouble pronouncing his name. He actually did a commercial back in 2022 that I thought was effective of his family, and they, demonstrated how to pronounce his last name, Guckian. But Justin, I agree with you as far as if you're Governor McKee, he's running third in a primary and second behind. He's behind a guy that's not even declared. I believe Shikachi would have a tougher road than they may realize, because right now Governor McKee's taking all the incoming fire, and it's warranted regarding the bridge and everything else. But I think if you are folks, I believe you could easily spin around and say, okay, well, you were the speaker, you were at the State House, you were in office. What did you do about the bridge? What did you do about the housing situation, or whatever the issues are going to be? She's not attacking him right now. There's no need to, because McKee is the candidate. But I come back to, I believe, why is he running, Rhode Island Governor Dan McKee? I believe he feels and thinks that it's going to just be the two of them in the primary, him and Helena Foulkes, with the help of organized labor, that they know how to manipulate these campaign mail ballots. And much like he did in September 2022, he had 3,000 more mail ballots than her. She won day of voting, but he beat her. And I think that's what it comes down to. There's no other, Justin, you and I are on the same page. There's no other logical explanation of why someone right now who's polling at 11% would think that they could get to over 50%. I think it's also interesting, there's 42% undecided in that poll. But when you're Governor McKee and you have a 72% disapproval rating, there has to be another reason why he would think he could win, because it would be impossible to turn public opinion around between now and next September. I'll give you the final word on it.
Well, it would be impossible. I guess what I find shocking is it's almost like he's not even trying. You could almost picture him putting out ads like, "I'm sorry, I've been a bad boy," or I've made some mistakes. Here's my new campaign. I'm turning myself around. Look at me smiling. I'm putting my arm around Aaron Gukian. We're going to have a great debate. You could picture that sort of an image change as an attempt, but it's like he doesn't even. You get the feeling, and you get this feeling with a lot of Democrats in the state. He's so confident that he can just take it by selling favors to the right people that he doesn't even care. He's just, whatever, here I am, take me as I am, let me go down to 2%. I'm still going to buy my way in. That's the feeling you get from Dan McKee, and it's been all the way along ever since he got in there.
Yeah, I think he views a couple things. Number one, he views he's got the mayor of Central Falls in his pocket. He's got obviously the mayor of Pawtucket and East Providence in his pocket. He feels good about the northern part of the state, being the former mayor of Cumberland. But you're right, Justin. And it kind of reminds me, if you've seen the movie The Untouchables, where toward the end of the movie, Al Capone, played by Robert De Niro, is on trial, and they're not even doing anything. They're not putting up a defense. They're not really questioning anyone. And then it turns out they're just sitting there, and the prosecutors are mystified. They're not putting on any type of defense. And then the reason is because they have a list of the jurors, and they've already gotten to the jurors. So that is their ace in the hole. Folks, it's time for Katz's Corner. This is a story that Justin Katz has found. And what do you have for us this week, Justin?
Well, I found an interesting article on the Providence Eye, which is a local independent, tends to be left-leaning news source. And they were talking about affordable housing and all of the layers and layers of regulation and oversight that go into keeping an eye on people to prove that they have the right income to live in particular houses or rental units. And what I wrote about on Anchor Rising was to ask, is this a good idea that we've got about 17% of all housing in the city is income restricted, which means that if you make just over that income, you have no chance because you're priced out of the rest of the market and you can't get into that kind of market. And I discuss a bit of how that really affects the way the type of people who can stay in Rhode Island, not in a good way. It affects how our society moves forward. And it's really probably better off not regulating and just going forward and letting house values be what they are and try to solve the underlying problem. So I wrote about that a bit on Anchor Rising.
I want to read that. And before I let you go, Justin, I don't know the answer to this, but a poll just came out, or actually a ranking. It's not a poll, it's a ranking. In South Carolina is number one as far as housing, new housing development, affordability, and everything else. Rhode Island is ranked 50th. In the top five, it's South Carolina, it's Texas, it's North Carolina. Rhode Island and Massachusetts are at the bottom, but Rhode Island is ranked dead last. And my question is, if someone travels to the Carolinas, or certainly in Florida, you'll come down a road, and then as far as you can see, it's a new development of homes. And granted, maybe it's not for everyone because they were all basically the same. And as far as you look, there's a row of 3 bedrooms, and then maybe the next row is 2 bedrooms or 3 or 4, whatever. But I think it's maybe even 3. And my question is, and I'm not trying to, maybe I don't know the answer. I don't hear anyone talk about it, but what is stopping? Why is the state dead last of housing and affordable housing? And because there is land, if you go down 95 South, as you're getting towards the Connecticut line, and I don't mean all the way to Westerly, but in the northern part of the state, certainly the southern part of the state towards Connecticut, and then you even go to East Bay, parts of Portsmouth, Middletown. I mean, there is land. And so I'm just curious, do you have any thoughts on why are we ranked dead last with housing?
Well, in that particular ranking, a lot of it comes down to building. I mean, it's hard to build here. There are a lot of requirements for it, especially if you get into larger structures. I mean, you've got I think it was Johnston recently, they used eminent domain to pull an affordable complex out from under the developer. So you get this strange, it's almost, Rhode Island's curious in that there's a lot of the progressive thing, but there's a lot of almost reactionary refusal to change. And so we've had zoning, particularly in the suburbs, where they've restricted it so you can't build on small lots. At the same time, you've got government paying money to buy up a lot of that land you noted is empty. We've got strange laws. Sometimes you'll see somebody rich who donates all the property. They'll buy acres and acres and donate all of it around them to not be developed. So they get their little house in the middle of all this forest and the rest gets preserved. So all of those dynamics go into having so little building going on and so few houses that it's really, that's what I think starts to make it such a problem. And my view is, if that's the case, let the prices go up and whoever can live here can live here. And we'll figure that out. Let the prices have to be what they're going to be. But reducing that zoning problem would be a major help if people would stop trying to tell their neighbors what they can do with their property.
So just one last question on this, because I don't hear enough fleshed out on this from anyone actually. But so if you and I are builders and we're going to build, 300 houses, 500 houses in South Carolina, my question is, why would that be so much easier that you and I are going to build 500 homes? It's going to be a development. They're all going to be the same layout and so forth. But what's so much easier about it to do in South Carolina or North Carolina or Texas compared to Rhode Island? You think it's zoning?
Well, it's not just zoning. I mean, first you've got to go through all the environmental regulations. You've got to prove all that, especially for the large developments. You're going to have to talk about traffic and wastewater, and all of that starts to add up. And then you get the local folks saying, no, this is going to increase our enrollment in schools. We're going to have to pay more for that. All of them start to petition the local boards to take forever. Planning, zoning, town council, city council, all of them get a say. And by the time you get to the end of it, you're taking this giant risk. And then, as we've discussed before, if you're talking about a large development, you're going to start getting that pressure from the labor unions to have the prevailing wage and all that. So that, when you put all that together, it just starts to not be a attractive proposition. And then even just the things people talk about, we've talked about, say, rent controls. When, say, the Providence is constantly talking about maybe we need rent controls. If you were going to invest in an apartment building, you're saying maybe I'm not going to invest there. And so that decreases housing, increases the cost of providing houses. And so I think that's what it is. It's those layers and layers of regulation, land and labor, especially, and environmental, just add up so much that when you add in the extra land they've got in a larger state, it's like night and day.
Folks, again, you can read about that and a lot more on anchorrising.com. Our segment Politics this week, he is Justin Katz. Justin, excellent job as always, and we'll talk to you again.
Thank you, John. Great conversation.
Yes. All right, folks, there it is, our segment Politics this week. This portion of our program is brought to you by Propane Plus. Remember, call them today, Propane Plus, and online at propaneplus.com. Remember, residents residential or commercial, you can depend on Propane Plus. They're available 24/7, whether it's heating or cooling or residential or commercial. You can depend on Propane Plus. Now remember, anytime you can log on at their website, and it's propaneplus.com, and boom, there it is. I'm looking for residential, commercial, heating or cooling. You can depend on Propane Plus, always online at propaneplus.com. And especially propane, it's lowest carbon footprint. It is renewable. Propane is energy for everyone. It's Propane Plus. Give them a call today. And again, you can always go online at propaneplus.com. Residential or commercial, you can depend on Propane Plus. I also want to mention Serve Pro of Providence. Folks, what a fantastic job they do. Remember, when disaster strikes, you can depend on, you need someone that knows what they're doing. You need Serve Pro of Providence. Give them a call today, Serve Pro of Providence, at 401-941-5500. Fast, thorough, professional, fire damage, smoke damage, water damage, and then mold. Remember, if you have a fire, well, they're going to need to put a lot of water to put out the fire. So if you have a fire, number one, you're going to get obviously fire damage, but then you're going to get smoke damage. Then because of the amount of water, you're going to have water damage, and then you're going to have mold damage. Serve Pro of Providence, 401-941-5500. I want to touch on, and I also want to, I don't think, sometimes I explain this so many of you, when you see a comment, that you can comment. And no matter how much we cover things that are in the news, and as I demonstrate, we have elements of the news and break more news. Like I said, yesterday was a Sunday and I had family in town. I ended up working all day. Why? Because there was so much news. So in one of the stories that we really worked on the past couple of days, and it has to do, for those that are watching, with this goon. And I want you to understand a minor vent here. There are people that post, I don't read all the comments. I don't have time to read all the comments. We're very active platforms. Obviously with Facebook, we just hit 110,000 followers on Facebook. Plus, I have another 18,000 on the personal page. So that's really 128. Plus, we're over 115 on TikTok. Plus, almost now 73,000 on YouTube. Plus, almost 60,000 on Instagram. But then the website, depetro.com. But this individual, check out depetro.com. He put out a video, and a lot of people aren't on TikTok, and that's fine. But in TikTok, you can add audio to a video that you put out. So in other words, you could film something and then you take audio and put it underneath that. And with TikTok, they do that a lot. And sometimes there are people that are constantly doing videos. A lot of young girls, they'll take, and TikTok has all this audio that you can use. And it could be something from, it could be a song, it could be something, a lot of it's from the Kardashians, could be a movie line, whatever. But there was a video of a guy that saw a Brinks, I think they called it a Garda truck, but it's like a Brinks truck. And he's riding along and he starts saying, God, if you can hear me, flip that truck, meaning, then the cash would then go spilling out and blah, 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 and this whole big thing. And then someone used that audio because they saw like a sandwich truck. And then people maybe get the nature of it. People are then, whenever they're seeing someone delivering Twinkies, and then they put the sound under that. Well, this individual, Juan Arquilla, he did it. He does a TikTok, or had. See, we move quick Because many times after they get in trouble, they take down the videos or they make their account private and no one can see them. But he had a video, a TikTok, where it's this, again, it's not his voice. And I get some people don't fully get that, but where he's showing he's in traffic and there's a state police vehicle. And he's basically saying, please, God, you can hear me, flip that vehicle. And then there's various profanity and so forth. So now no one would post that if they were, to me, that sounds pretty anti-law enforcement. I didn't make the video. He posted the video. This goon, he did. And he was arrested. He didn't stay at the scene. This is the individual. These people, it was a tragic accident. A tragic accident. The driver stays on the scene. He didn't stay on the scene. He left. They located him later. And then a judge let him out. Now that girl, the 23-year-old who lost her life, on 295 on Wednesday afternoon, her car then went flying off the median and hit a tree. And I have heard from people, now her father is a Rhode Island State Police captain. Her brother is a trooper. This is mortifying to hear about. But I've heard from people, as we say, there's some sources connected to it that claim that she had a state police sticker on her car, which a lot of friends and family of police do. And there's nothing wrong with that, unless you come across someone like this. But don't tell me, the people that are don't tell me it was an accident, like some of these people. Oh, it's a tragic accident. A tragic accident, he wouldn't be. We cover many situations sometimes where then the driver isn't charged. And the police go out of their way to say that the driver stayed on scene. What does that tell you? That's then, and it can happen, that's a tragic accident. Not they arrested him the next day and they sent him to court. He ran her off the highway, this goon, this jerk. And he's got friends and family contacting me and all, the profanity. It is like, yeah, her father's a state police captain. So police respond to the call, single motor vehicle crash, 295 South, right at Cranston. Honda Accord traveling in high-speed lane, forced off the roadway by another vehicle. Entered the center median, struck a tree. Casey Bonsani, I don't know if I'm pronouncing it correctly, Bassanani, 23 years old, pronounced deceased. The operator of the second vehicle, Juan Arquila, 43, later located and taken into custody, charged with driving to endanger death resulting. Driving to endanger death resulting. Why am I repeating that? That's not a tragic accident. This is the statement from the police. The statement of the police would say the driver stayed on scene and as of right now is not facing any charges. That's not what happened. Driving to endanger death resulting. Endless. These people. It's a tragic accident. Why was he arrested? Why did they have to locate him? A number of bystanders stopped. People stopped. It was terrible. It's on the website, depetro.com. And there's another thing. Since I'm in a full vent, this one I admit, I'll never understand these people. I freely admit that. I will never understand these people. Let me just find the comment. Another one of these people, don't talk about it. You should not have this story. Nope. Insensitive for the family. Take it down. Don't talk about it now. Like that whole thing. Well, we heard that, as I've talked about, we've heard that after 9/11. I want to just explain something, and I'm trying to be as polite as possible. Folks, when we cover different stories, I'm not covering it for the family. It's for you, the general public. You know what else? So this woman, I could find her name. I don't know. Take it down. Family's mourning, disrespectful. Take it down. There's two families. I'm not that concerned about this guy. If he had stopped, even still, I will never. They don't influence me, but they're nonstop of these people of don't talk about it, right? Just like I lived through it when I was on the radio in the aftermath of 9/11. You'd get these people. The television station should stop showing the planes flying into the tower. No, they shouldn't be showing it enough. You shouldn't be talking about it. That was always a big one. You know, I can't explain that enough. We don't. If someone experiences a tragedy like that, I don't expect they shouldn't be scrolling through any social media, let alone my page. Let me find that woman's name. Don't talk about it. How about these people? You know, it's so disrespectful to the family of the girl that passed away. So in other words, I will find her name. So in other words, what would be respectful is no one talks about it. That's what the family, you know, not that this person speaks for the family. So that's what they would prefer. That this happens and no one says anything or everyone just goes on. Does that sound like a normal reaction to you? I mean, this story is so terrible. And I'm going to talk about the Central Falls story in just a moment. I'm just telling you because it doesn't impact me, but there's no shortage of people like that. Don't talk about it. Don't post this. You know, maybe later on, not now. Listen, the media moves on. Other stories come in. I don't say I'm going to do a story and post things on my page so the family can look at it. Listen, that's for the funeral home. That's not what we do. That's not what I do, I should say. You know, the statement is every time, whether it's that goon or whether it's another story I'm going to talk about, here's something that people put. He was someone's brother. He was someone's son. He was someone's friend. They're talking about the person that committed the act, right? He was a friend. He was a brother. He was a son. Yeah, so was Hitler. So were the 9/11 hijackers. Wow. You know, this whole business, I don't think people understand the news. I'll take care of it. You don't care about the victims. I don't know what to tell. I don't know what that means. When we report on a story, I don't do it to then I'm going to go out and start raising money for, you know, everyone involved. And you can always, that's the least common denominator always. Television does a story, they just want ratings. Newspapers cover a story, they just want to sell newspapers. You can always come back to that. What makes that wrong is that it's news, that something is news. So all these people that talk about that stuff, but that's like, you know, something I see. Someone's in the news, whoever it may be. He was someone's son. That was someone's brother. That was someone's, you know, friend. Yeah, the 9/11 hijackers all had friends. They had family. Like, where are you going with that? Craig Price had parents and had a sibling. What is that supposed to mean? Why is there a human out there that doesn't? I don't even know what they're talking about. I don't. Now I'm going to talk about the Central Falls thing. Thank you, Ryan. No, insanity. What would be news? These things happen, like the Central Falls story. But I believe you can't follow that mentality. You know, you can't follow those people. I don't know. We talk about it. It's much like, the Patriots are going to play on Monday Night Football. Somebody gets a touchdown, whoever. Maybe it'll be Drake May. Maybe it'll be Hunter Henry. Well, with the amount of money he's paying, it should be catching. I mean, you can always come back to that. Boy, I really enjoyed the game that Tom Brady was doing for Fox. Well, do you see what they're paying him? Of course. I mean, you can always come back to that. If a newspaper does a really good story, you could always say they just want to sell newspapers. There's an elected official that does something. They just want to get votes. It doesn't mean there isn't value there. So, folks, this portion of the program, now the clock is ticking. J. Perry Paving. Call them today, 401-732-1730. Before it's too late, call them, 401-732-1730. Free estimate, letter J, J. Perry Paving, 401-732-1730. Yes, I care a lot about the content that we put out. I do. I'm very competitive. I like to put out valuable content that I'm interested in and other people are interested in. Yes. You just care about your content. I don't care about all content. I don't do cooking recipes. I don't do pet of the week. I don't do, let's go on the Newport Mansion tour. I don't do any of that chowder and clam cake nonsense. I like real news. So, and I find other people like real news. This is so sad, this story out of Central Falls. 19 years old. Saturday night, she lost her life. Nisha, I believe is the way it's pronounced. Nisha. Now, I just received a press release from Central Falls. Central Falls Police Department still investigating fatal shooting that occurred Saturday night at 11. I was long asleep. I had a very busy day on Saturday. I was asleep. I don't know what time I fell asleep. I fell asleep watching some college football game. Shots fired, 19-year-old male and a 19-year-old female suffering from gunshot wounds. The male victim was transported to Rhode Island Hospital. He remains being treated for his injuries. The 19-year-old female was pronounced deceased on the scene. Now, different people sent me her information, and then Channel 10 did. They can have it. They can have it first. But I want to just explain something. There were people that treated it as, don't talk. Here's another story. Don't talk about it. You see that with these people. Let them rest. Let them rest. Listen, when someone she was murdered. I mean, I don't know. I doubt she was the intended victim. It doesn't mean that then it doesn't change the outcome. This notion of, they're so demented. Whoever did this, I get the whole thing on the street. You don't snitch. There's a street code. There's no code. There's no honor. There's no code. Whoever took the life of this 19-year-old girl should go turn themselves in to the police department, wherever they may be. There's no, this is so, whoever did that, somebody did that. Maybe they were, I don't know. I don't know enough about it, so I'm not going to guess, but there was a 19-year-old. Were they even the targets? Unknown. But Saturday night, a 19-year-old girl was out, and then she was fatally shot and killed. And whoever did that, this whole, I get these people, don't talk about it. Let her rest. She's not taking a nap. You know how devastating this is to a family? And here's the other thing. There are people out there right now that know who did it. Do you understand how broken that is, that they don't come forward? All these people say nothing to the police. I'm telling you, it's foreign. I think it's third world. It is, there's no, that's not respect. There's no honor there. I hear that a lot. We'll cover some of this stuff. Let them rest, as if they went to lay down for a nap. They're never getting up. Do you understand that? Maybe it's a way of denial. There is something wrong. Whoever did this, and they still haven't come forward. Oh, let me guess. They didn't mean to shoot her, and so they feel really bad. Yeah, that makes a huge difference. Except it doesn't. Of course. Ridiculous. People are clowns. Hear that all the time. Who's hearing it with the Bucket West member? Let him rest. Let him rest. Oh, yeah, maybe he'll feel like, what are you talking about? I don't understand. I freely admit, I don't understand the mentality. I don't understand the notion of something like that happens and everybody's quiet. No one's going to say a word. You know, let her rest. Forever 19. Forever 19. Whoever did that should go to jail for a very long time. I don't care how old they are. You know, that's another thing. I've had it with this notion that somehow, you know, when an 18, 19, 20-year-old kid does something, like we heard about that, the kid in Woonsocket, you know, he wasn't mature enough to know what he was doing. So he shouldn't really have to go to jail for his whole life. You know, he didn't. Oh, that's not the one I wanted. He shouldn't really. Moronic. Terrible. Terrible. Let me also say this. See, to me, Governor McKee has not commented on this story. Nothing. Governor McKee, I haven't, other than, you know, the mayor of Central Falls had to say something. But the governor, Gabe Bomo, they don't come these stories. They comment that Aaron Gukian, look at this 23-year-old Casey, run off the road off 295 on Thanksgiving Eve. No comment, no statement from the governor. Nothing. Absolute insanity. You had Olivia Passaretti. Folks, do you see what's... I mean, we are being served up on the roads, but to criminals. This 23-year-old girl, father, police, state police captain, brother, a trooper, she should be alive. This is crazy. Who's letting these people in? I've had it. I've had it with their nonsense, with their foolishness, with their third world attitudes. Let them rest. Terrible. Her family should not have had to go through that for Thanksgiving. And then it's permanent. He didn't even stop. You wouldn't believe the filthy messages I'm getting from his family. The goon. Stop talking about it. His family's going to sue you for posting the TikTok. Let him try. Oh, you mean the TikTok that he put out? Wait do you see the next TikTok I have of him? Yeah, I have another one. He doesn't look that upset. He doesn't look that upset. What is happening that our elected officials are letting people like this into the state and they serve up our young children to face these criminals on the roadways, excuse me. Terrible. Governor McKee, this Trump candidate for governor, that guy is so pathetic. But I want to be very clear. I think they're all pathetic. I'm telling you, Governor Juan, I'd be talking about crimes like on this. I'd be going on crimes on this. That mayor of Central Falls, too soft. The people where the shooting happened, they know who did it. You have 24 hours to hand over who did it, or hell is going to rain down on these streets. Had it. Enough. I want someone that's going to talk law and order. Had it with this foolishness. Let them rest. No. Either we get the person responsible or nobody's resting. Tell you that right now. All hell would rain down until they hand them over. Nope, no one's going to talk. Yeah, no one's going to talk. It wasn't an accident. She should be alive. This guy fleeing the scene and his goon family contacting me. Not going to happen. All right, folks, we are going to be live at 7 tonight to talk about that. If you're listening to the radio, stay tuned for the 2 o'clock news.